Yeah. Okay, I need to find you here.
Am I live? Am I live yet? I gotta have my socks pulled up straight. Well, look, there I am. Something's happening. I don't know what I'm on. You're doing it. How's it going, Commander? Oh, that's the end call. That me or you? Speak up, Big Danger says. I can. Hey, Vic, I can start taking my boots off again. Well, he can't hear me. Damn it. Can hear you now. Okay. I think I'm gonna get started here in a second, but can you hear me, Chuck? Yeah, my picture's not in the frame. You got it. All right, you're working that. Okay. How's it going, Jester? Great DM Commander. How's it going, everybody? We're here for GM's Tricks of the Trade, some number, I don't know what. And you have the wrong, Chuck, you got the wrong title up again. You got Haunted Holiday. It's always something. All right. Yeah. Well, I got to figure out. I think if I just put this, if I just put you, I'll just talk to you. I really need to talk to the cameras. What I really need to do. Thanks for the sub, DM. We are here for Tricks of the Trade number something or the other, 68 or something. I'm not sure what we're on. I still haven't gotten my numbers lined up with Tim, so I think we're 2 off on my end of things. But we are here for more discussion about horror, and we're talking about triggering trigger moments, things to use to help trigger the whole thing. I don't know. That title didn't work. I don't like that title. It's a ridiculous title. I don't even like that word. I used to like the word trigger until they started using it for all this social whatever we're doing these days, whatever that may be. So I think what I need to do, Chuck, is get a picture of Tim and put it up here next to the camera, so I'm talking to him. That'll make me look. Yeah, it's not a bad idea. Just so that I'm looking at something at any rate. All right. At any rate, thank you all for showing up for GM's Tricks of the Trade number, whatever. And we're here to talk about horror again. We're going to do one more next week, and then we're going to meander on to different subjects, I think. Yeah, I know we are. I'm getting a little bored with horror, so my my bird brain and its lack of attention. I see the next trick of the trade be 69 romance in your games. There you go. Something or the other is like 11st, 27. Exactly. And the problem with those numbers is, I don't know, Lord Delius, we've been numbering them from the beginning, but somewhere, and I think it's because we did these 2 shows that we did Twitch shows that looked back to the original ones, and that got our numbering off somehow. My numbering has it, I thought sequentially. Tim said my numbering is not sequential, but I'm still not convinced he didn't put in the extra shows that had, what is it, Chuck, like 20 of the Tricks of the Trade don't have Twitch shows, right? Is that right? 21, 20, something like that? Yeah, yeah. So that's what all that's about. Is just getting all this stuff lined up. Well, so many. Yeah, for me, it's a counting thing. I can tell kind of how many tricks of the trade we've done. If I got 68 issues out, then I've done 68 times 5. Well, when we do the book, we're definitely going to have to get in there and organize them by subject matter. That's going to be entertaining at least for a little while. Can I ask you about the economics of book printing? Sure, we'll dive into GM Tricks of the Trade. I love any kind of distraction, so that works for me. Anzig. Well, TLG owns its own print shop, so we keep our cost per unit way down, and that's all on soft covers, stuff like that. And then we use a local company, not local, it's in Missouri, a company out of Missouri called Walsworth to do all of our hardcovers, and then we do the boxes in it's a company out of Tennessee, I believe, that does all the imprinting. But generally speaking, the old adage was that your MSRP, your price, should be 10 times greater than your cost. That kind of went away with small press publishing in the early aughts because it was, I mean, you would be pricing books through the roof because if you don't print 10,000, you're paying pretty hefty. D20 kind of salvaged that somewhat because orders were pretty high and there was so much business flooding all over the place. But at any rate, the whole 10 for 1 kind of got knocked off of its pedestal, and it's really kind of a 5 for 1 now, something like that. But even that gets dicey because Kickstarter's changed all of that simply because people are paying, whatever you're going to charge for the book, which means you're doing a huge number of direct sales way in advance. Whereas back when the 10 for 1 was the rule of the day, direct sales were, 5 or 10% at best of your business. I remember when we started, direct sales were about 3% of what we did. 97% went through distribution. So that whole thing, that whole pricing schedule kind of got knocked wonky. 60-pound text paper and 80 C1S cover. Yes. Now, I think we used to do 110 C1S, and for those who don't know, C1S is coated one side. That means your one side is going to have either a gloss, and it's C1S gloss, so it's 80-pound gloss cover, and ours has a UV coating on it, and 60-pound text. Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, it used to be really stringent, and it still sort of is. I got a pricing guide that I follow that I peg on a book, but I mean, there's so many variables. If we send, like when we have covers printed for the print shop, we use a local guy. If I send them over 1,000 covers, which I always do, I get a discount. So that, I mean, the pricing is just all over the place. It's kind of hard to pin it. How's it go? Hey, Piper, there's Eric right there. How you doing up there in cold land? I'm looking at printing hardcover wants a decent printing price. Is color pages way too expensive and heavy? So yeah, and the color will triple the cost of your book, generally speaking. Now I don't do any offshoring. I don't nothing from TLG is printed in overseas printing companies. So I can't speak for what you would pay, if you used Vietnam or Taiwan or China or even Canada. All of our stuff is printed in the United States, which is going to be 5 to 8% more expensive than it is over there. When you get into the color, I think black and white's about comparable, but when you get into the color range, it's markedly more expensive to do it here, and the books are much heavy. I will print in Canada, Laura Delius. I have printed. We actually began printing in Canada, but I don't have any Canadian printers at the moment. But yeah, we definitely did. Print and Litho was our first printer, without a doubt. So yeah, so your cost per book, it ranges on how many, on your page count and on how many books you're going to do. If you're going to do 500 books, you're going to end up paying $12 to $15 a book. But if you get over the 2,000 to 3,000 range, you get it down to about $7 a book for a color, something like that. Now, of course, that doesn't factor in any of the art costs, layout costs, writing, editing costs, all of this other stuff. So there's an absolutely gigantic number of factors that go into getting a book from idea, to the shelf. But if you want, shoot me an email over at troll@troller.com, and I'll fire you the information that I have, and you can determine and ascertain its relative value. So, but yeah, it's quite a two socialists, not even margin. Yeah, things are a little bit more expensive to do in Canada than they are in the United States. And there's also some crazy customs fees. You got to either figure out how to dodge, not that we would ever dodge customs fees, or you just got to work your way around. And speaking of books, thank you for using stitching for your hardcover bindings. That hate books that are glued. They never last. You're right, Athelston. Yeah, they don't. I'm a huge bibliophile. I got a huge collection of books in there, and I do not like glued books. With one exception, we did in our print shop. We did what's called inline printing, and essentially, because we don't have a stitcher, you see that that little white thing there. I can't see what I'm doing. I can't see where I'm gesticulating, but that little white thing there is your headband. And your book blocks are stitched to the headband, and the headband is glued to the end sheets, which are glued to your covers. In inline printing, which is really kind of cool, it glues each page individually to the hardcover, to the spine itself. And there's two factors about this that I really like. One is it stays together like a son of a gun, and two, now it's not as good as stitching, though. Don't get me wrong. It's still not as good as stitching. If you yank it hard, it's just glue, so it's going to pop out. The stitching is, of course, a signature that folds over and is stitched into a book block. Because if you look at, like, I don't know, I got the player's handbook, and it's probably 12 signatures that are stitched to the headband. But the other cool thing about inline printing is when you fold the book open on its spine, you lay it open, whatever page you go to, it opens to that page and it stays there. There's no, flopping back or forth. You don't have to break the spine or any of that. So that's something I appreciate when I'm reading. But overall, the Smythe Zone, we've been using it since the beginning, and we'll continue to do so. Yeah, yeah. We got hit pretty good with a Canadian customs bill, Lord Dalius once. It was it was annoying to say the least. Chuck said Fantasy Grounds is getting a makeover soon. Yes, that is very much on a docket, uh, and we are very soon. Very. I don't know if the makeover will be soon, but we're going to launch into making that happen soon. I'm actually just kind of let before we dive in to let you guys in on behind the curtain type thing. We lost one of our oldest suppliers went out of business about 3 weeks ago. They supply all the glue, the binding equipment, technical support, all kinds of parts for the binder. Just a great little company, been around for 22 years, and they just went under and closed shop. And I actually didn't get the word until they had closed. I mean, they gave it like a 10-day notice, sent letters out, and I hadn't checked that, hadn't opened the mail. So I couldn't actually stock up on glue. But so that supplier went down, and we've got another one that I think is under severe pressure. So, and like I was telling everyone, when economic turmoil reaches Arkansas is a pretty poor state. So when economic turmoil in the United States reaches Arkansas, it's kind of something to keep your eyes open a little bit. Which brings us to Fantasy Grounds, which brings me to the digital side of things. We're really going to kind of shift gears a little bit. Once we get through the Player's Handbook, 8th printing Kickstarter, we're going to shift gears a little bit and focus on digital, and build that side of things up as we all anticipate whatever's coming down the pipe. And who knows? We got the election wrapping up here soon, thank God, and we can all kind of get back to it. I can't take much more election stuff. I just just had the polls are I just can't take it. They totally absorbed 2 books. I tried to order from you guys directly. I had to get the flags to order them before they were let across the border. Yeah, it's crazy. And I have to say, the only thing that drives me nuts about Canada and Mexico, there really should not be this kind of border issues. I get it, sending it to Poland or the United Kingdom or Japan or whatever, but we're just neighbors over here. Come on, man, it's a book. For God's sake, just let the book across the border. There's a lot of work to be done on the Fantasy Ground stuff. Yeah, that's Chuck and Tim's department. So I can speak very little about Fantasy Grounds. One of these days, I'm actually going to learn how to do it. But in the meantime, let's dive into tricks of the trade. So we've been talking about horror stuff for quite a while. For those of you new to the stream, I ran a horror game, my first horror game that went for a long time. I've always kind of done a little bit of scary here and there, but this one I ran for, I don't know, 8, 9, 10 sessions. I have no idea. It was a few months ago, and it's all blended together. But what I did is I kind of brought together a lot of things that I've been doing over the years to make this feel more like a suspenseful game and not a slasher flick, anything like that. We're really kind of talking about, contained, macabre, I don't know, haunting of Hill House type stuff that just gives you that whole, makes the game unnerving when you're playing. The characters can't quite associate with what's going on. They can't quite relate to this event or that event. And we've talked quite a bit about that the last 3 tricks of the trade, I think, and we'll do the last one next week. But today we're just talking about some of the things that I used to kind of trigger emotional responses, to kind of drive that feeling of, I don't like the word terror or even horror in this context, but just kind of an unnerving fear. So the first one up is sound. What's that sound? I thought, Chuck, that was a molder there that you had there in the panel, but is it Liam Neeson? I don't know who that is. Oh, there you go. There you go. I see Wise Dreamer. I'm starting a campaign over Discord, and Fantasy Grounds. My players are like the classes and adventures backpack. Very cool, Wise Dreamer. Yeah, we put a lot of work into those things. I'm super excited about. I like them all, but there's a few, especially the Skull and the Primal Druid, that I love those classes. Yeah, I think that's what you're playing, aren't you, Chuck? I think it's. Oh, that's right. We played the high level yesterday, so we shifted into that. That's right. That's right. That's right. All right. So The first trick of the trade is sound, and it's using sound. And I think that frequently we forget, as game masters, the importance of sound, especially in the dark. So if you're trying to set up this kind of thematic thing where there's shadows everywhere and your players can't see as well, and even if it's completely pitch black, and the Blair Witch project type thing where you've just got the light shining in this direction or that direction, describing sounds is one of those things that we frequently forget to do, but it's really, really important. And as any of you know that's been out traipsing around in the dark, sound gets amplified and your brain kind of rewires almost immediately to focus in on it, and then the sounds take on far greater meaning than they would have in the daylight. I mean, if you're sitting at home alone in your house, there's going to be this creaking sound that you haven't heard, and you think, what is this sound? Where is this coming from? And it's probably been creaking for years. You just haven't heard it because of whatever other distractions. So bringing some kind of sound into the game, and this goes from the very noticeable, metal on stone, maybe it's a dagger or whatever, to the chittering of a squirrel somewhere, the cawing of a crow, any kind of sound that you can conjure. Though I would kind of impress to try to do something that's a little bit different, something that's going to make the players sit up and take notice. So I don't know, off the top of my head, a coin dropping. You hear the clear sound of a coin hit the floor somewhere ahead of you. Something like that. I don't know, a match striking, anything that's kind of normal, but wouldn't necessarily be normal in the situation that they're in. If they're outdoors, they're hearing a bird cawing somewhere isn't going to be necessarily scary or odd. It's just something disturbed a bird in the darkness. But if you hear something that sounds like a chittering laughter, anything like that, that's going to make the players sit up and kind of take notice that something different is happening. And the sound doesn't really have to be associated with anything that you're doing. It's just descriptive text. It's just flavor text to kind of get an emotive response from your players. And that's really all you're trying to do. And sound is one of those things. I use it a lot when I'm even outside of the horror context. The clanging of metal on metal during the battle, the shouts of the wounded, the neighing of horses, any of this stuff. I think one of the most distinctive sounds is a wagon wheel. So if you're describing the sounds, you're in a town, a cart lumbers by with its creaking wheels, anything like that to kind of focus in the character or the player's attention on what you're saying. It's just a good way to kind of set a mood. And in a horror environment, it's almost essential because frequently, not always, but frequently we're dealing with darkness, and darkness has that thing. Smelling and taste are kind of out. You can pick up smells, but for the most part, it's difficult to convey that linguistically. But sounds you can convey across the table. So any kind of weird little sound that you can come up with. Odalius has steam hissing, children's laughter, dogs barking. Yeah, any of these things that just, we're going to get into the creepy kids next. That's the Jack and Jill thing. Anything, nails on a blackboard, anything that makes them the sound of a cold can of Dr. Pepper being opened, which is going to happen in about 30 seconds. So, how do you deliver the sound to the players, especially this digital age? Well, that Lord Dalius, I have not shifted my gaming into using platforms like Fantasy Grounds and D20 and whatnot. I still do. I mean, I've only run like 3 games online. Well, that's not true. I guess I'm doing, since COVID settled upon our brow, I've been doing a weekly game, but we just do it Skype. So I do the same. I just kind of describe it. If I really did a lot of work into the game, you probably could download sounds, for whatever. But I rarely put that much work into my game. It's just usually I put my games together about an hour before game time and then dive in. So that's good. That's how that usually works. But so anything tapping, scratching, dripping, dripping is a really good one. Dripping always draws people's attention because it immediately you hear the word dripping or the plop plop of water striking something. You think decay. So dripping is a really good one. If something's leaking, it's broken, right? And that's what you're trying to, if that's what you're trying to convey. Breathing is good, but the problem with breathing is it's probably going to be close. right? And if it's close, then you know how you know how players are. They're going to fireball something immediately. The reaction is usually violent if they think something's close that they can't get a hold of. Muffled crying and laughter. That's a good one. Anything muffled is actually a good one because that kind of, again, it has the same impact that dripping does. You feel as if there's something more than just the sound. The sound is muffled. Well, what's between me and the sound? Is something blocking it? Is there a door? Is there a monster? What, there's all kinds of stuff. So that's a good one. What, an hour? I've been slaving for hours every day this week for a 3 hour session on Sunday. Yeah. Yeah. I tend to slam my games together pretty quick. That's it. It's just kind of the way I do. The cave breathing. There you go. Used to run a game every year at Halloween based on the Phantasm movies using the old Beyond the Supernatural. Oh, that's cool. That's very cool. Painting a picture with sounds. Yeah, it's really good. I mean, the sounds really can make something, it can bring something home to roost. And that's really what you want to do. And, we talk about this stuff all the time. I think last week we talked about color. Bringing in a vivid color into a drab description will immediately orient your players. Bringing in a sound will do the exact same thing. And it's even more so because it's unusual in the literary context. You don't often, I can't even think, I'm sure it happens, but even thinking about Lord of the Rings, sound isn't used much. I'm sure it's in there, but he doesn't often describe that. I think in Moria there's quite a bit of it, but it's just one of those things. So definitely use sound in your game. Chuck, let's roll on to number 2, Jack and Jill. And I think we've already hinted that this was coming. Oh, well, let's see. That's Aliens, right? And that's got to be that's the young lady who falls down. Newt, yeah, I forgot to read her thing. Did I mention that in the trick of the trade? Yeah, that's true. That's true. Making the mundane odd. And linking it together. And that's what a lot of this stuff is, especially in the horror. It's kind of bringing it all together. But children, I've always known this, but I watched the movie. We've talked about this before in the stream. I watched the movie The Witch a few months ago. I strongly, strongly recommend that movie. It is just a good movie. I'm not sure it's going to fire you up for any gaming, but it's just a good movie. It's well constructed. And in this movie, there's these 2 little children that are constantly singing these rhymes and whatnot. And it was so creepy and it was so odd. And my brain, as I'm watching it, because I'm actually trying to watch it to dissect what my reactions are. Because I don't normally watch horror movies, and I specifically watched that movie to help me gear up for the horror game I was going to run. And I was just looking for, what others do. And I'm watching these children, and I'm thinking, I don't understand why children's laughter is so unnerving. It is used constantly as a trope in movie after movie after movie, but it is definitely unnerving. And it's not when you're with a child and the child is laughing. It's really not unnerving. It's you know why the child is laughing. All of my children have this tremendous belly laugh when they're laughing. I mean, their whole body is just, and it's just pure joy spilling out of it. So there's nothing really scary or unnerving about it. However, I think that when you're looking at a child or you're listening to a child laugh and you have no context for why the child is laughing, and it's this pure, it's a laughter that is completely devoid of any trappings of real world life, suffering, any knowledge of anything that may come that could bring harm, right? So as an adult, we hear that and it's unnerving because we know that's not the way life plays out. We know we know life can be tough, can be all of these things that life is. So I think that pure humor or that pure laughter out of context just unnerves us as adults, and it makes us wonder what's going on, what's happening. So I don't know. There's just something very unnerving about children. We all know it. We all hear it. Thank you, Willie, for the subscription. Very much appreciated. Let's see. I missed a few comments in here. Children are naturally scary. This little girl has survived for 6 months without any weapons. Then why don't you put her in charge? I love that line, DM. It's a great line from Alien. fireball them from orbit is the only way to be sure. Children are just naturally creepy. My own kids have been creepy as hell at times. Yes, indeed. Let's see. And yeah, when I hear my kids laugh and I'm in the room, I must confess, I usually have a moment of concern. What are they up to now? Yeah, there's just something about, I don't know, there's just something about it. And I think it plays in when you put children into a horror environment, even if you take the laughter out. Now we're looking at a very primordial thing that we're hardwired to do, whether you have children or don't have children, whether you like children or you don't like children. I think the vast majority of us, now there are clearly some exceptions, but the vast majority of us are hardwired to help children, and this is a preservation of the species type thing. You know, this whole biological drive that all of us have to protect the helpless, to protect the young. I mean, you can see it in any species, almost any mammalian species. I don't know about fish. I don't think they particularly protect the young, and some reptiles do. But so once children are in this environment of whatever it is, the dark, the manor, the dungeon, there's this knee-jerk reaction to assist them. And Chuck's choosing Newt here is a perfect example of that. I mean, she's the perfect catalyst for aliens, right? I mean, we're watching the movie and it's horrible. Spoiler alert, it's horrible when Hudson gets killed, but it's Hudson and he goes down fighting and we're like, this is pretty cool. But no one really wants this little girl to get killed. I mean, that's not cool. So the director, the writer, whoever's playing on all kinds of emotions that we have as humans, and that's what you want to do in a horror game. You really are trying to evoke an emotive response from your players that unnerves them, that puts them in an uncomfortable situation. Now, I do want to drive this point home because this is important. It's very important for conventions. I was amazed in the last few years at reading about DMs that got themselves in trouble at conventions for doing extraordinarily adult things at a public table at a convention. And that just boggled my mind. You certainly have the right to do that at your table. Carry on. I don't care. However, know your audience, and so govern what you're gaming. Don't do too much overboard. And when it comes to children, you really don't want to run a game. I would never advise you to run a game where children are getting harmed or in any way abused or any of that. You can maybe imply that they're in a horrible situation. You can maybe imply that they need rescued. You can imply all this type of stuff. But describing children in such an environment is, I just wouldn't do it. I mean, certainly you can if you want to, but it's like a slasher film. It takes the whole thing a step too far. In my opinion, you've got the children there, you've got some tittering laughter, you've got a nursery rhyme, you've got this child chained up in a possible cannibal's house. So there's all kinds of, thematic things here that have already unnerved your characters. To actually go into the child as being eaten aspect of the game is completely unnecessary, and all you've done is gone. What is that movie? What's the one that had the record blood amount? Animator or Reanimator or whatever it was. It was just one gigantic slasher fest of blood. But so I would avoid that if I were you. But definitely consider children in a horror in some capacity, whether even if it's on the sidelines. And if you watch The Witch, you'll see that these children, though they have a greater role as the movie plays out, for the most part they're on the sidelines, and it's just this unnerving thing that you can't quite get your head around. The children should not be exposed to danger, but they are exposed to danger, but they don't care, and they are living in this kind of otherworldly existence in their minds. So it's just all very unnerving. It's very, very good, a good way to approach it. Piper Dog says, I have successfully used children as NPCs to get the players attached and emotionally attached, and then they find them killed by the Goblin Raiders, etc. Then the players truly want justice. Yeah, stuff like that's fine, so long as you don't go, in my estimation, go into detailed descriptions and all of this stuff. It's very unnecessary. I'm not a big fan. I ran a game. I did it for the auction thing. I think Willie, you were in it. I ran a game a few weeks ago, and the target of the rescue was a pregnant woman, and even that was almost a step too far for me. Putting a pregnant woman in danger in the context of the game, I thought, no, this isn't very cool. But I mean, it's still. I was in a gray zone, but still in kind of a safe zone there. Yeah, but you do not. Let's see. But you do need to be careful not to kill everyone the players come close to, or they'll stop getting close to anyone. Oh wait, I missed. I have used a fake child to gain the party's trust, and then it shapeshifts into a little demon. Yeah, there is Commander. Great, both of those are great points. You can definitely do that stuff, but with all NPCs, and we've talked about this quite a bit in the stream. You got to be careful having those NPCs attack characters because, holy crap, they'll never trust anything you ever do again, and it'll derail games for ad nauseum. As a DM, you have to be able to read the room, horror genre or otherwise. Yeah, that's the key right there, Willie. Understand it. And if you're at a convention, just tone it all down, for God's sake. Just tone it all down. Now, the Witch movie, I found two, one with an Asian actor and one set in the 1700s. It's probably the 1700s because it's like colonial America, and this family is kind of ostracated, driven out of their little village, assuming somewhere in New England, and out into the thing. So I think it's called The Witch. It's not the one with the Asian actor. Let's see. All right, so let's go on to number 3. I think I've jibber jabbered into the last few minutes. Let me. Okay, well, wait a minute. That looks familiar. That's not Damien. Oh shit. And I will tell you, Damien scared the living crap out of me as a child. The Omen. The Omen. That was what it's called, right? Village of the Damned. All right, there you go. I watched when I was a kid. I watched The Omen. Now I never watched the other two, but that movie derailed my brain pan, especially when he takes the tricycle. Spoiler alert! And he kills his mom and knocks her off the banister or what have you. That's just a horrible scene. So this is basically taking. It's kind of running with the theme from number 2, like Chuck intimated earlier. Children of the Corn. There you go. What's that guy's name? Zachariah. Was that the leader of that redheaded guy? Why are redheaded people so scary? What's up with that? Yeah, there's a 2 V's to the Vitch. Great movie, Slow Burning Heart. Yeah, it's Scott. You're right. It's got a slow pace to it, but it's worth it. The other one that's got a slow pace that I really enjoyed was Gretel and Hansel. Check that one out. It's a little bit different, but its visuals are fantastic. Absolutely, just stunning. So on this third one, oh, it's Ralph Bakshi Day. There you go. I love Ralph Bakshi work. Absolutely love it. This third one is taking just any kind of, like, one of these children or an animal, anything, and making it just a little bit odd, just setting it off from what it would normally be doing. And the laughter is a perfect example of that. Say you've described this village where all of this nightmare terror is going on, spiders are infecting it or whatever, but yet there are these children that are laughing. It's anything that you can take to make the mundane and make it a little bit odd. It's like the sound. It's going to take your players. They're going to refocus on that. That's what they're going to be focused on the table more, because now they're trying to figure out what this strange thing is. Why is this child acting this way? Why is this dog that's tied up to a stake just barking at the well? Anything like that. The ass is braying for no reason. Anything that you can do that with an NPC, an animal, something like that, that's acting a little bit strange, is just a good way of unnerving them again. So you're just coupling all of this stuff together just to make them feel a little bit out of sorts as they're trying to figure the whole thing out. And again, a lot of this stuff doesn't have to have any real meaning to your game. I mean, for those of you who have animals, I've got dogs, and crap, they bark at the street. There's literally nothing out there, and they're barking at it. I mean, I'm sure they heard, or I have no idea. They see and hear better than I do, I suppose. But so the animals act strange sometimes, and children certainly act strange sometimes with whatever thought meanders into their head, or thing they see or thing they don't understand. What did you say? My ass brays all the time. Chuck, you're gonna get yourself in trouble, buddy. Yeah, you're gonna get in all kinds of trouble. But 40, what is that? Spoiler alert on a 44-year-old movie. Was that The Omen? That movie terrified me, man. When did that come out? Like 76 or 77 or some kind of crap like that. and that little kid looks terrifying, you know, and that's actually a perfect example. Damien in that movie, go check out a clip or two on YouTube. I'm sure you can find it. The little boy, and he has kind of the, what do they call that, a bowl cut? I think he's got the little bowl cut hair that was famous in the 70s, and he's emotionless through the whole movie. He's just emotionless. Maybe gets a little, I don't know, a mean glint to his eye, but it's unnatural. They What the director has done there, or the writer, they've taken this just normal kid and made it a little bit odd, so that the more you watch the kid, the more odd it is, and you just, there you go, it's 1976. It just is odd, and it just unnerves you a little bit. So it's not the jump scare. And the jump scare to me is one thing, it's almost impossible to do in RPGs. It's just almost utterly impossible to do at the table. I've never successfully done it. I mean, you can't, you jump out from behind your screens and shout boo or something. I don't know, but it's just something that doesn't work. And I don't actually like it in film either. But in the context of the table, taking something mundane, making it a little bit odd, giving it a strange sound, and throwing children in there. And you've got this nice kind of whirlwind of just emotional background and descriptive text that, if you're lucky, will begin to unnerve your players. Now, in Clifford Woman's novel, City, the dogs can see into nearby dimensions they call the cobbly worlds. Things, oh, no, that's kind of cool. Maybe that's what my dogs are barking at, M5. They're always barking at something. I know what it is. It's a couple of cats that are sneaking around. And strangely, M5, when I saw it said Clifford, I thought immediately of Clifford the Big Red Dog. I don't know why I thought of Clifford the Big Red Dog, but I certainly did. All right, Chuck, let's startling people is not scaring them. Exactly. And that's what now RPGs is really, when we're talking horror, that's really what you're wanting to do. You're wanting to just scare them. You just want them to be unnerved. It's just startling someone so they spill their Dr. Pepper on the table is not, that's just obnoxious. All right, Chuck, let's roll into number 4, A Touch of Magic. What are we doing? Oh, there you go. Yes, the water turned red. That's a good one. I think I used that example in there. So this is almost the same thing, plays on the same thing as number 3, making the mundane a little bit odd. Keeping in mind that you're probably, if you're running a fantasy game, you've got magic all over the place. You've got magic creatures, fairies. You've got all kinds of things that you can use to justify there being strange stuff that's going on. I think one of the examples I used was a spring whose water is red, and there's no particular reason for the characters to know that it's red. It's just odd. If you're describing this lush green, prairie with trees, a few copses of trees around it, and then they come to this stream that's just running red, and it's just something that's a little bit odd. It's out of the ordinary. It makes them think that that they're stepping into a world that's not completely something they understand. And now you can easily go too far with this. I mean, if you make it actual blood, well, you just went Reanimator. Now it's just weird. It's just, whatever. It's gone into somewhere different. But what you're really trying to do is use magic in a context that whoever your villain is, if it's a witch, it's a wizard, now, and it may not be one of those. I mean, it may be something else, but if there's any kind of magic involved with it, that they use that magic in such a way that it corrupts the land or the house or the dungeon or whatever around them. So perhaps there's enough residual magic in the air that torches constantly flicker as if they can't get enough oxygen. Anything like that. That just makes the players think, oh, we're doing something. I mean, we don't know what's going on. We can't explain this. And you've got them if they stop and they start trying to unravel whatever you've riddled with them. And because you're working with magic, because you have that as your cornerstone, really anything goes. I mean, anything that your imagination can conjure. Now you can justify at the table because of an errant spell or magic in the air or whatever. There's a thousand things that you can do. Evils. What did I say? I guess evil incantations. There's just lots of things going on that you can do, and to just keep people unnerved. All right, I think we're ambling into number 5. Yeah, and I haven't said it, but we all of these streams. If any comments you guys have about this stuff, ways you do it, please throw them into the stream. We'll talk about them. Answer questions or divvy it up. It's always good for me to hear from other GMs who have obviously run games for as long as I have or for years and picked up stuff. Spreading the wealth of knowledge is a good thing. And if you haven't, please give us a follow. We are here every Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and Tim's back live again with World Anvil, right? Okay. Yeah, he got the satellite, so that's a good thing. Well, I know he wants to move out of that place. Oh yeah, no, it's there's two ways to get to where he lives, and one's has a low water bridge, and there's any amount of rain, and it's underwater. Now his dad, interestingly, his dad, I've watched him would just plow through that water on that low water bridge without another thought to it, fearlessly just plow through it. Yeah, yeah, I don't think I would do that. What? Yeah, it's good people. Yeah, but anyways, what was the story? Oh no, 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 no. Yeah, no, there's none of that. I've probably gone over that low water bridge with water on it, but only when I can see that bridge clearly. And I'm in a big ass truck, so I'm up and above, and all that crap. Oh, rolled up. I can't. I can't. Oh yeah. So that's. I took it down from the whiteboard. It's the. It's this guy here. Am I on the camera? I can't see. Yeah. So it's that canvas done by Noble Dwarf that they sent over as kind of a this is how we do it type stuff. It is absolutely badass, and it's actually what the covers for the Player's Handbook 8th printing and the CKG alternate cover will be in a Kickstarter that we're running right now. It'll be this really nice heavy canvas, not quite that big, but a really super nice heavy canvas. Dude, that I got to tell you, I don't know if you can post it here in the chat, but that cover, the sketch of that cover that Jason did is just mind-boggling. I mean, he took it and just he ran with it. He did just a fantastic idea, fantastic job on that. So for the mundane, I had players investigating a cult, and one of the cult leaders would follow them as a black cat that would stare unwavering at them from a distance, no matter where they were. Typically from the shadows, they got very unnerved. Yeah, that's it. I mean, you've taken an animal and you've made it do something very odd, and act in a way that it wouldn't naturally act. And immediately the players, of course, they're expecting a trap, they're expecting something, and that's natural. But they don't know how to react to it because it's just a cat. So it's one of those things. It's one of those tools that you can use, one of those little tricks that you can use to help unnerve. And that's, I think, at the end of the day, these horror games are kind of designed to do. So on and into the last is the unnatural. So this is kind of one of my favorite things to do. I tend to get into. I thought that was Edward Scissorhands for a minute, but I guess that's not Edward Scissorhands. I don't know who that is in your panel there, Chuck. But you're muted. There you go. All right, yeah. That's funny. I hadn't seen that. I have to check that out. Davis actually, his cleric, when he introduced it to the game that we're running now, the high level one, he sewed his mouth shut for the first two levels so that he couldn't use any spells that required verbal components, which for a cleric is the vast majority of them. It quite frustrated everyone at the table, but I thought it was hilarious. Yeah, Piper, that covers is just astounding. I was floored just taking. I can't wait till he gets the color in it. Jason's really good with color, and I love what he's done with the woman that Efreet is holding. She's no longer passive, being rescued now. Now she's got this fireball spell coming online, and I know he'll do some great effect with it. So I'm super pumped to see that. Yeah, Ultra Magnus, there it's coming without a doubt. I have no doubt we'll hit that stretch reward. We're not far from it, and once we do, we'll add the canvas on to the add-on so that everybody can add to their pledge. and we probably should get Noble Dwarf working on those things now, actually. At least the player side of things. So for this last trick of the trade is the unnatural. Now, the thing I did that was the most unnatural recently it was in that horror game. They opened a door that opened up to a kind of an annex, an open air annex between two wings of this house that they were in, and standing in it was a deer that had one broken leg that was kind of twisted off and at a very odd angle that it couldn't stand on. Then its eyes were sewn shut as well. And as soon as they opened the door, the deer started hobbling in. And they had no idea what. There was no relation, there was no preparation, there was no anything that led them to believe that, one, there would be any kind of livestock in the house, that this door would open up to any kind of scene like this. It was just all they didn't have any idea what was going on. And Mac actually thought he associated immediately with Let in Air, that's the stag, and that's the god of hope, that someone was mocking him because that's one of his patrons. And he went kind of ballistic about it. So it was really cool. The whole making this unnatural event worked very, very well because suddenly everything was off kilter. There was the children, the friar birds, the food on the table that was still warm. There's all kinds of tiles, the green tiles in the bathroom really kind of threw them for a loop. But when they ran across this, it was so disjointed from everything else that and was just kind of like the icing on the cake that it sent them all kind of into the darkness. And that was good. That's what we're trying to do, what you want to do with doing something that's just unnatural. And it can be, it doesn't have to be geared with animal mutilation or human mutilation, though obviously things like that immediately gain a response from your players because they can associate. But it can be any number of things, and off the top of my head, I don't know, I've got a picture of a wagon in my head, but I don't know, just anything that you can think of that makes things a little bit odd. Here you go, a wagon that's whose wheels have been greased with the entrails of some kind of animal. No one with any sense would grease a wagon's wheels with animal entrails. It would gum up immediately, and it would turn into kind of a paste. You want to use some type of oil. But if they come to this wagon and there's a bucket next to it, and there's a rag in the bucket, and there's animal entrails in the bucket, and clearly something has greased this wagon wheel with these animal entrails, it's going to be something that's very unnatural, and they're going to suddenly shift their minds. Hopefully, if you're lucky, their minds are going to shift into kind of a dark place that, okay, this isn't fighting the one-eyed Cyclops and taking his golden treasure. Something else is going on here, and that's really what you're driving at with the unnatural. With all of these things, you're really just trying to unnerve them and put them in a different place without actually making it so graphic that you've gone to the slasher film type stuff with blah 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 blah. Gandalf, sir, don't hurt me. Don't turn me into anything unnatural. Yeah, there you go. Exactly. It's a great scene. Yeah, I want the canvas, but unfortunately, most of the rest of the merch I don't need. So pledging for all or nothing on the merch is hard. Yeah, Commander, I'm going to look at that. We've had a lot of requests to break that up. I'm probably going to break that pledge up. I don't think very many people have even pledged on it, to be honest with you. So I think we may just break that pledge up and let people pick and choose one way or the other, especially on that canvas and the T-shirt too. But we'll see how it plays out. Yeah, chair made of arms, anything like that, and that's actually a good example, Ben. You don't even have to have it made of. It can be made of bones. It can be shaped like something like that. Something that's just very strange that makes the players think I'm in an otherworldly environment. I'm in an environment that's not conducive or friendly to the way I see the world, and that's a good thing. I think there's a movie I'm trying to think of this on the tip of my tongue that this is all over it. Halloween Town actually is a really cool. There's got a lot of great imagery in that for the unnatural, especially. I can't remember what he is. The guy who's going to kill Santa Claus in the end. He's like a bag of maggots. So that's great imagery. Halloween Town is actually, if you've never seen it, it's a Tim Burton movie. Is it stop motion? Animation. It's stop motion. I think it's stop motion. I think Tim Burton does stop motion. But it's the imagery in Halloween Town is absolutely through the roof for the bizarre, the odd and the unnatural. So, you know, and it's Halloween. Give that movie a watch and see if it can't conjure up anything in your mind. I think I'm going to use that. And there's going to be a player who will want to sit in it. There you go. They always do. Nightmare Before Christmas. Yeah, the Nightmare Before Christmas. Red Sox. Yeah, great movie. Fantastic movie. Always I had a player last week put a necklace of eyeballs on. They always do something because they're players. And then they're going to fireball it. Disney Haunted Mansion has given me a decent amount of material. I'm fixing to watch The Haunting of Bly Manor. I think it's on Netflix, just released this month. I was posting about it on Facebook. Yes, exchange. There you go. Eyeballs will do that. All eyes on. But yeah, I'm going to watch that Haunting of Bly Manor. That actually, the one that came out a couple years ago, the Haunting of Hill House. Is that it? The Haunting of Hill House had a lot of really great imagery in it as well for any of this type of stuff. And again, that's actually what we're trying to go for here. We're not going for, you know, who's the slasher guy that lives in the lake by the cabin? Jason. We're not going for the Jason. What's the movie? That's it. Friday the 13th. We're not talking about Jason and his mess, because those movies just irritate the living crap out of me. Yeah, Friday the 13th. But yeah, I'm gonna check it out, Piper. I think I'll probably start watching it this weekend. I need to get back into watch Haunting of Hill House. I only saw a couple of episodes before getting distracted. It's really good. I gotta say, it's kind of long, but it's really good. The imagery is really good, and this thing on the Bly House has a lot of good imagery I'm wanting to borrow. And my game has moved. My high level game has moved into the planar, so I'm looking for really different, just different stuff. I watched a music video from a bluegrass, an Estonian bluegrass band called Curly Strings. You can see them on YouTube. Fantastic music. But in a couple of their videos are these just beautiful visuals, and it's just driving, you know, kind of inspiring me on things to do in the Planescapes. A Guide to the Plains, which is what I'm calling our book at the moment. And I think that Bly House Mansion thing is going to have some good visuals in it as well. Yeah, give it another go, Commander. It's worth the trek. I got some, you know, at some point I may do reviews. That's what I should really do, Chuck, is a review show, because I'd really like to talk about some of these shows that I watch. Yeah, and I've got some very pointed opinions about the Haunting of Hill House, but it's damn well worth the watch. Let's see, I'm watching that now on episode 5. This one is an adaptation of Turn of the Screw. Friday the 13th, yep, always remember that the way door was bending inward. Haunting of Bly Manor is more suspenseful than the latest movie about Turn of the Screw with the Stranger Things kids, The Turning. Yeah, I think I like suspenseful, and that's what I liked about the Haunting of Hill House, especially the portrayal of the ghosts in the beginning was just the man with the cane and looking for his hat was just fantastic. I mean, it was just beautifully rendered on screen and very terrifying and suspenseful and all of these things. I mean, it brought in all of those things, something very unnatural, because if you look, he's not touching the ground, nor is his cane, and then there's children in the room, and there's just all kinds of things, the under the bed type stuff. There's all kinds of things going on to play upon your emotions. And that, at the end of the day, is what we're talking about with trying to create a horror feel, you know, at your gaming table. There's so many things you can't do. Slasher's easy, obviously, but the jump scare you can't. All of that stuff's just not practical in our medium. But definitely you can create a sense of the macabre, and bring that to the table and keep your players kind of jumping. Well, that's it for this week. Next week we're going to dive into the gritty of combat in a horror game. Some of the things I do to kind of bring stuff to home, and it'll get a little bit more gruesome, what we touched on here, but we'll dive into that. Let's see, what do we got? I missed a few comments here. I'll always remember that door was bending inwards. And go over that, blah, blah, blah. My favorite horror film is Pandorum. I haven't seen that, Mark. I'll have to check that out. Let me call that up on YouTube before I forget, with my extraordinarily tiny brain. Because I don't like Friday the 13th type movies at all. I really don't. But I do like things that kind of put me in a different place, and that's what these two manor horror things and Gretel and Hansel and the Witch. They just put me in a different place, and it's very nice. Well, if you're gauging viewer interest, I would love to watch a review stream about recent things viewed. Yeah, I think I'm going to talk to Chuck and Tim about this. I'd kind of like to do this, and we could branch it out into books, movies, all kinds of stuff. Sure. Yeah, let's. Tim loves. Oh yeah, dude, I eat at his house every couple of weeks. It is. It's food to die for. Let me tell you. Yeah, his food is very, very good, and he loves cooking. Let's see, horror on a spaceship is great because there's no way out. That's a really that's aliens right there in a nutshell. Slasher movies or any movies where human beings are the scary bad guy are not scary to me. Yeah, I'll bet, Piper. It always lets me down when it's just a matter of please, please, please just get out of the house. Yeah. And that's one thing I liked about the Grudge. The horror follows you. Yeah, what is that? Amityville Horror was a terrifying movie from way back in the day. Yeah, there's been some really scary ones. You don't really have to go all that out. So what? So Chuck threw out a question. What would you guys think about a cooking show here on the Troll Lord channel? Chuck, as Tim talked about, I know he's talked about doing one kind of related to gaming, but is he talking about doing just a cooking show? Yeah. Well, cooking shows are crazy popular. Everybody eats. Everybody likes food. Oh yeah, well, we and I talked about doing something where I would go over and he would cook, and while we're cooking, we just talk games. So it's kind of a mixture of cooking and gaming. Unexplained things are more creepy to me. I already understand that and can explain that humans are jerks. Yeah, humans are kind of. It's one of those things. I mean, and that's why the supernatural, like Piper just said, the supernatural is a better place to go. Uh, Only if tasting samples are passed out. Grape Ape says, cooking show. Bye bye chicken. There will be no chicken. Not the troll or chicken. Okay, now I'd watch that for a certainty. Watching you guys cook would be a hoot. Yeah, yeah. Tim takes it very seriously. And I asked him, I just slap crap on the grill. I don't give a crap. I just want to eat it. I want it done. I hate cooking. And I asked him the other day, I said, now, how do you, he's making this delicious hamburger. And I was eating it. I said, now, what do you do to make this blah, blah, blah? And he, he gave me all these instructions about doing this to the meat, I think, salting it or something, put it in the refrigerator for 12 hours, laying it out, doing this, 4 minutes, that. And I was like, maybe 4 words into that description, I was done. I'm going to just go to Purple Cow and get a hamburger. I'm out. Maybe try and steal one of David's chickens and cook it for him. Yeah, there you go. I think one of those chickens didn't make it. I think it has it has crossed over. People in Arkansas eat real food. I always thought it was possum noses. Yeah, pretty much that. lots of beef down here, beef and corn. There you go. That'd be kind of cool. We need to get Dr. Pepper over here and do some sponsoring. That's what we need to do. We've contacted them 3 times, and each time it's come back with no, thank you very much type thing. But I think if we can kind of get a grassroots going type thing where people are constantly, and then we pitch them that we need to unseat Mountain Dew from its unofficial, drink of gamers and replace it with Dr. Pepper. That's the way to do it. There you go. Oh, that is true. Go all in. Gaming isn't gaming without Dr. Pepper. There you go. Beats Bears Battlestar Galactica. Hell, Dr. Pepper shows up in the world's categories. That is true. I rarely say Castles and Crusades, don't I? I rarely say those words. That's funny. A Dr. Pepper drinking game for when you when you do a Twitch show. There you go. All right. With all of that, and we are done for this week. Thank you all for showing up. I surely do appreciate it. Appreciate the follow and spread the word if you can. I'll be back next Tuesday for Ask Me Anything. Davis may or may not be joining me. And then we got Haunted Painting on Wednesday. And then Thursday, I'll be back for another GM's Tricks of the Trade, and we're going to wrap up horror. And then Tim will be putting his World Anvil show back online, and maybe some cooking. Who knows? All right. Yeah. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, DM, Commander, Mark, Ultra, Piper, everybody. Thank you all. And thanks, Chuck, for getting all this rolling.